Welcome to PodRocket, a web development podcast brought to you by LogRocket. I'm Noel, and today I'm here with Zoltan Kochan, lead maintainer of pnpm, and we're here to talk about pnpm 11. How's it going, Zoltan?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to kind of jump in here. I did kind of like a quick reading of the release notes, but I'm excited to kind of dig into the details a little bit. I guess to start off, can you kind of just give us an overview of what kind of the biggest shift here is and what the largest motivations are? Why is this a major release?
There were a lot of huge changes in this release. Maybe the most important one, it appears, is the change of the minimum release age setting. So now from V11, by default, it's going to be 1 day, which means you won't see new versions from your dependencies that are less than 24 hours old. As we've seen during the last year or so, all the attacks that were successful on these open source packages in the npm registry were discovered in the first 3-4 hours, I think, because there are so many companies that are constantly scanning these packages. I can't even name all of them. I know
there's so
Socket, Socket and Aikido, and there are a couple more, and they basically compete with each other who will catch this first. So we did a poll about this, and we did a poll last summer, and most of the people said they don't want this to be changed. And since then, there were so many incidents that I did this poll again, in April or so, and the majority of our users voted to introduce this change, 75% or so.
Yeah. How did you guys settle on 1 day as the default?
This was just because, as I mentioned earlier, most of the incidents are cached in a few hours, so we don't want to be too strict about it.
Yeah,
that's why we chose 1 day, not 7 weeks.
Yeah, you said the sentiment shift quite a bit. It sounded like over the span of 12 months there. Did you guys get any pushback on having this on by default, having the default set? Was there much kind of discussion happening?
So the comments, there was a loud minority. There were a few people that were really unhappy about it. But when you have so many users, there will be always a few people that is unhappy with something. You can't do anything that satisfies everyone. But that's why it's a setting, so you can change it. If you want, you can disable it. But the vast majority was very happy about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have to imagine this was an option or a configurable option that there probably wasn't a lot of demand. People just didn't care about, and then it suddenly got onto everyone's radar. Like you said with the polling before, suddenly everyone cared about it a lot. Did you guys? Was there a plan for this feature ahead of time? Had you considered this in prior versions and just now felt like the right time? Or what was the history of deciding to get a minimum release age added?
So this was a chain of changes that we were doing. So because in V10, the first thing we did last year was to block the post-install scripts of dependencies. We were not the first one who did this, but we were the more strict ones because Ban does this as well, but they have a default list of trusted packages. Ban by default allows to run scripts for the 500 most popular packages in the registry, and we also considered this, but in that case, this actually also shifted because this decision was done internally by our core contributors. We voted to don't have the default list, and actually most of our users were pretty unhappy about this one a year ago. And then I did a poll before releasing V11 because I wanted to know if people want to have this default list, and most of the users voted against it. This also shifted in a year drastically. Then we also added a setting called trusted policy it's called. And this one is currently an opt-in feature. And what it does is it checks if previous versions of a package were released with a higher level of trust. So with Provenance, or with how it's called OIDC, like the release from GitHub Actions. So if a package had this OIDC configured in the past, And now a new version came out, released with the Node token. Then with this setting, installation will fail and you'll get an error message. So this can catch some issues. And I think NX would have been caught with this, the NX incident, because they were released without this OIDC. But this is currently an opt-in feature.
No, it makes sense. Yeah. If suddenly there's a strange, I'm air quoting, like strange deployment pattern on one of your packages, like it seems like it'd be worth having pause there before moving forward.
So the main issue is this, both of these changes, like the minimum release age and the trusted policy, is that they need time information, like timestamps of versions. And the registry, the npm registry, doesn't provide this information in the obfuscated metadata. So you need to fetch like the whole metadata. That's why initially I was against enabling it by default, because it makes installation slower.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a pretty large performance hit if you have to pull down full metadata for a pack, especially when the trees kind of branching out quite a bit?
Yeah, but then I came up with some hacks how to make it faster.
Okay, yeah, nice.
So now it's actually as fast.
Nice. Yeah, comparable. Cool. Let's rewind a little bit to the kind of post-install script changes. There's a few changes here. I remember the allow builds setting is kind of different as well. What is that new allow builds allowing for? How does that differ from what people had access to before?
Yeah, so we were moving really fast in V10 when we shipped this change. Like it was almost before the V10 stable release that we introduced this breaking change. The configuration was a bit messy. We had only built dependencies which is an array of package names. And we had another setting called ignored built dependencies, which is also an array of strings of package names. So basically, if in V10, in the early versions, you would put a package which has post-install scripts to one of these arrays. So in V11, we just refactored this to be inside a single map, allow builds, where the key is the package name and the value is either true or false. And also this setting is pre-populated. You can just open up, after installation, you can just open up the pnpm-workspace.yaml, and there you'll see the packages already there with a placeholder that says, change this to true or false.
Is that mechanism quite a bit cleaner for how most people were using these settings before? Do you think this will simplify most people's configuration quite a bit?
Yeah, I think it's easier to understand. For me, it's a lot cleaner, because it's even easier to pronounce allow builds versus only built dependencies. Actually, these two settings were inside PNPM for a long time, for a few years already. We just changed the default in V10.
Gotcha. Yeah, and people probably started leaning on it quite a bit more, kind of, especially as there was some scrutiny around the post-install steps and all this stuff.
Yeah, there were a lot of incidents. A few years ago, there was like 1-2 incident a year, and now it's 1-2 a month.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of, I guess this is shifting gears a little bit here, but I also saw a note on global installs working a little bit differently. Can you explain that? Is that a security thing, or is that mainly just a developer ergonomics kind of change?
That's more like performance and correctness.
Gotcha.
Yeah, actually, there were a lot of changes related to the global virtual store, if you have heard about it. So this one is it's hard to explain because we have like several layers of this global store. So we have the content addressable store, where every file of every package is stored by its content hash, right? And then normally you'll have hard links to your node modules or like ref links on systems that support them, but still you save space. You save a lot of disk space with this design because the files are not duplicated into node modules. But during install, PNPM will still create like hundreds of directories and like thousands of these hard links. And this takes a lot of time. And to make this faster, I came up with this idea to move out all the packages from your project's node modules to a central location on the disk, where every package is stored in a directory which is calculated from the dependency graph of this package. And then when you run install, if you have hot cache, basically all that PNPM does is it creates a few symlinks to this central location. So instead of thousands of file system operations, pnpm will just do like 12 if you have 12 direct dependencies. But this is a big change. I recommend everyone to use it. They can enable it with enable global virtual store in their pnpm-workspace.yaml. But it was early to turn it on for everyone. I think there are a lot of broken packages that will stop working with this new layout. However, global packages and the packages that you run with DLX are simpler because they are like usually pre-compiled, pre-built. So for them, I have enabled this by default in version 11.
Gotcha. Do some packages tend to break because they're doing something interesting, like with the file system and paths? And is that where the errors usually arise?
Yeah, usually tools that resolve dependencies using their own resolution system.
Yeah.
Like instead of relying on Node's resolution system, they usually deviate from the standards, and they might only test it on a flat node modules. Actually, now PNPM is so popular that I guess I could be an asshole and just break it, and then
people would update their packages.
Yeah, they would storm those packages with issues.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So is this mainly a benefit if you have like multiple projects kind of on your system? If you're only working with one project, would this global change really help you? Or is it mainly you're not just kind of rehashing, if you'll forgive the abuse of the term, the same?
So I think for local development, I can't come up with a scenario where it's bad. For CI, it might be worse because on CI you mostly have cold cache. So probably it might make no sense in CI, but
I guess it depends though. Someone could have a multi-step build where there's a cached layer in there and it's checking.
But the best use for this feature is now for working with agents, because I started using Git Worktrees heavily. So I even I have written an article about it in the PNPM website. You can search for it. Just search for Git Worktrees with PNPM. And I describe how I use Worktrees in the PNPM repository. So basically, the issue with Worktrees is that it takes a lot of time to set up a new worktree, right? Git creates a new worktree very rapidly, like in a few seconds. But then if you run install, it will take like at least 20 seconds. And then TypeScript will take another 4 minutes to build everything without cache. However, in 2026, both of these issues are gone, because if you enable this global virtual store, then if you had a previous worktree where you already ran install, then the next one will immediately complete, because PNPM will just create a few symlinks. And then TypeScript has TS rewritten in Go, which is not the latest yet, but I don't know if it has any issues, because I use it like for several months already.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly. And TS Go also compiles like in 30 seconds maybe.
Yeah.
Versus 4 minutes. Yeah, golden age for development.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question. To what extent are these people using agents for development? I think that is changing how developers work and kind of how they interact with their tooling, right? The demands of their tooling change rapidly. This Worktrees example is a good one. Are you guys paying pretty close attention to that? Is that kind of influencing decisions that you're making on how PNPM works?
Yeah, it does. We can have an advantage if PNPM works actually good with AI. Actually, there was I don't remember how this website is called. There's a website, someone posted it on Twitter, which lists what stack different agents prefer. And I think a few months ago, I checked it and it preferred PNPM, which is great, because someone just asks an agent to create a new project and their agent will pick PNPM if they don't have their own reference configured. So yeah, this global virtual store is very good for this. But yeah, we also use agents for development ourselves. Like it completely transformed how we develop PNPM. That's why there are so many changes in V11, because we were able to make huge changes that were in the backlog for years and we couldn't do it. But now we could.
I saw the npm CLI fallback. That seemed like a feature that maybe was something that re-implementation seemed like a thing that was like, oh, maybe AI development kind of helped get this one across the line finally.
And also the Rust rewrite. Actually, I talked to Mael a year ago, the lead maintainer of Yarn, and he shared back then that he works on the Yarn rewrite to Rust. And I jokingly said, not jokingly, I meant it, that I will postpone it till AI will be able to do it for me. And it took like less than a year for this to become true. Now I can, like for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'm working on the Rust rewrite of PNPM, and it works perfectly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is crazy. I think especially if it's in an environment with a good amount of tests and everything like that, you kind of having something you can iterate against is quite helpful, it seems. Speaking to like large scale changes, the top of the release notes, we talked about Node.js 22 being required and kind of the dropping of what was supported before, 18 plus.
So yeah, 18 was supported and now 22.
22. Yeah. Were you thinking about this in the same way? Was it like, people can update their projects more easily now? Or was there just something you needed in particular in 22 that felt like a logical breakpoint here?
So I don't worry that much about the supported Node.js versions, because we actually ship a binary version of PNPM, which we generate with nodes. Like in the past, we generated it with PKG by Vercel.
Yeah.
And now we switched actually in V11 to pack it with nodes built-in single executable application feature.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually added a command to PNPM for others to use if they want to do the same.
Cool. Yeah.
CLI. So yeah, I recommend everyone to use this binary version of PNPM, because then they can install it on a system which doesn't even have Node.js installed, and then they can use PNPM to install Node.js. And actually now I work on a GitHub action which can be used instead of the Node.js GitHub action. So instead of having one action for installing Node.js and another one for installing PNPM, they can have just this single action and run install, and it will install both the dependencies and Node.js.
Yeah, nice. Is that what's the main kind of use case that you've found there? So people dropping into systems that don't have this installed, or is it like for CI/CD pipelines to remove a step there? What's the main use case?
I think it's one less tool to use. It's more secure because we store all the integrity checksums of Node.js in the log file, like any other dependency.
Yeah.
Usually other tools are used personally by every developer on their machine. And not all of these tools work on all operating systems. Usually in the past, there was one tool that worked good on Windows, and then there was another one for Linux and macOS. Maybe it changed now, but I like that it creates a perfectly reproducible build.
Yeah, you don't have to use some other. Yeah, it's not like you're not reaching for containers or something just to get a rerunnable build. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it works with ban and dino as well. So you can use the same commands, the same settings in packages, so on, just replace Node with something else.
Yeah. Is it pretty easy for developers to make the switch? I'd imagine so.
With AI, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, I tried to move PNPM to both Dino and ban, and AI did it like in a few minutes. It was just slower with both.
I was more curious if you think devs should make the switch to the standalone executable. Do you think AI helps quite a bit there?
Sure.
Or if it's working correctly now, don't really worry about it.
Switching is actually easy because everything remains the same. You just install a different package.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, and again, that's what I'd imagine it would just work. Like, I wouldn't think there'd be much. Is there any configuration weirdness or anything that needs to be different there? Or yeah.
No, you just open the PNPM installation page and you pick the installation script. Gotcha. There is one for POSIX and one for Windows.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I guess on the configuration front, I did notice that there was some npmrc with the pnpm-workspace's YAML file. There's some differences there.
Yeah.
What motivated that, the change in how that configuration works?
Yeah, that was not our choice. We were forced to do that because npm started showing up these warnings that this is a unknown property. So npm CLI added some strict validation to the fields that are in npmrc, and they even print out a warning that this will break in a future major version. So we had to stop using npmrc, and pnpm-workspace.yaml was already there, so we decided to use it instead of creating a new file.
Yeah. Did that cause any pain? Is there any kind of, I don't know, configuration, anything that feels a little bit strange now, or is it a pretty clean change?
I think it's better because npm, like an ini file, limits you. In a YAML file, you can have much richer syntax, like
it's more structure.
Objects, comments. Actually, comments are preserved now, and formatting is preserved. The pnpm-workspace YAML. These are also improvements in the V11 version.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and if you open up the release page, at the top there is a link to a migration page. And on the migration page, you can see there is a code mod you can run to automatically move all these settings and do other changes that are needed.
Yeah, nice. That's kind of what I was going to ask. Have you seen pretty smooth upgrades? Have people reported the upgrade going pretty smoothly?
It's hard to tell. I think it's smooth.
Yeah. Good.
Because it's impossible to release a new version without some people like having issues. Even with a patch or minor release, you can get some issues. And the major is another story. But looking at the download stats already, like V11 is, I think, downloaded 5 million times, like in the last 7 days. And the amount of issues in the repo is fine. Yeah, it's pretty smooth.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but do you think that now that most developers, I assume, are using an agent of some kind to facilitate their migration, does that kind of change? Do you think that is going to lead to easier adoption for people? Do you think the agents are doing well enough at helping people migrate their projects that it's not as much a pain point anymore?
Maybe, but I'm not sure how it works because agents are usually trained on older data, right?
Yeah.
Are they able? So actually I added we have a command for updating pnpm. It's pnpm self update. And when you run this command, if the update is going from V10 to V11, you'll get an info message that tells you to open up the migration page on the website. And this was actually added to help agents to find information about the migration.
Yeah. Because I imagine they'd probably run the code mod if they find the page to do it, and then they're asked, or at least they'll surface it to the developer.
So the page has the code mode and it has some other instructions that should be done manually. So I hope agents can read this and do the changes.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular that people keep getting hung up on, or that has been a pain point thus far?
So this change of the minimum release age set, it is confusing to some people, because they run install and they don't see a package that was released today. So we got a few issues opened about this. And other than that, I'm not sure. There were bugs that we fixed.
Yeah, that's good though. It's good if there's not.
The global install, the global install was a bit confusing. I changed it a bit also to make it less confusing.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see. I feel like I don't have a ton more questions. What are you kind of thinking for V12? Is there anything that you guys left out of V11 that's kind of on the roadmap that you'd like to include?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of plans, a lot of ideas, but unfortunately, I really need to focus now on the Rust rewrite.
Yeah.
Because now with agents, anyone can do it. So if we don't do it, someone else will do it. In the past, we had a big advantage because of our expertise and all that. We need to adapt. So now we will concentrate on to ship a Rust engine that will work with an up-to-date log file, because that's easier to do. because the resolution is a lot more complex. It's influenced by a lot more settings. So we will solely focus on doing like a frozen install with Rust. And I want this to ship in version 12. And maybe if we're lucky, in version 11 as an opt-in. And I have a few other ideas which I need to postpone for now. Also, I mentioned the global virtual store, which I would love it to be the new default in the future. So far, there were no issues reported about it from people using it for global install.
Yeah.
We need somehow to increase the amount of people using this to see if there are issues and fix these issues.
Yeah, it's probably kind of tricky when you don't, it's like if something's not default, it probably has very low adoption. And then as soon as you flip it over, it's like suddenly tons of use.
Yeah. And when you change it in a major, it's already late to go back.
Yeah.
To see if it's safe to do.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. There's probably people paying attention though. If you tell them it'll make their builds faster and all that jazz, I'm sure people will start opting in.
Yeah, maybe we can change the website, mention it more, maybe mention it on the homepage. I don't know. Can come up with something.
Yeah, we'll call it out on the podcast. If you decide to come back, we'll implore people to go turn it on. Yeah, cool. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Zoltan, before we sign off here?
Yeah, if anyone is interested, wants to have his or her name in the commit history, let's come to the pnpm packet repository and see the roadmap, especially if you have experience in Rust. But even if you don't have it, you can now use an AI to help you. And you can help us ship this sooner, or even come to our regular TypeScript repository. It also has hundreds of issues, so you can work on that. However, I need to tell that it's really, really hard now to keep up with a huge amount, like the tsunami of new pull requests in the pnpm repository.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's really hard. It really shifted things in OS, in open source, because in the past, it was really rare. You got a good pull request with many changes, and now you get 10 a day.
Yeah, huge line count changes, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I can't really cope with it. I'm changing processes to be able to handle it, to sort it, to...
Yeah, do the triage and ensure things are working. Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Cool. Yeah, well, again, thank you for coming on and chatting with me, Zoltan. Again, if you got a major version, or even if the global setting, you're looking at getting more support there, let us know.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Have a nice day.
Course.